Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I have two very special guests today. We'll be discussing our top five Jimmy Stewart movies. So without further ado, let me introduce our guests. What's up, you guys?
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. Yeah. You guys pumped and excited to talk about James Stewart?
Always.
Heck
I
yeah.
love the guy. So yes.
All right. So before we get started, why don't we each introduce ourselves? So how about we start with Evan and talk a little bit about yourself and your channel?
My name's Evan. I'm Pop Culture 33. My YouTube's been kind of quiet the last few months. I've been in the middle of a move and a new job, so hopefully starting tomorrow, I want to get my channel back and running. But I just love movies. I love talking about all kind of aspects. I mostly like Disney stuff, but I like old movies, but I like new movies. I just find movies very important to us, and I just love talking about it with other people who love movies. So that's kind of what my channel's about. There you go.
Yeah. So, and I have links to all of that in the description. And also, let's have Nathan introduce himself.
Hey everyone. Nathan here. I've been on Harrison's channel before, but kind of like Evan, I love talking about the older stuff, love the older movies. I'm transitioning right now from my channel being Nathan Hale Classics to Maple Street Movies. It's kind of happening. In fact, I think I'm making the change officially tomorrow, July 1st. And so kind of in that transition phase right now. But on my channel, I talk about old movies, classics like TV shows, Twilight Zone, really just a lot of older black and white movies. And recently this year especially, I've been doing videos for actors and actresses, like top 10 videos. So I have videos for Audrey Hepburn, Charles Lawton, Gregory Peck, James Stewart, funny enough. So don't watch my video yet, watch this live stream, then watch that video. But, yeah, very excited to be here because James Stewart is my favorite actor of all time. So was very grateful that Harrison invited me on.
Of course, yeah, and thanks again, guys, for coming on. And so I'm Harrison Scullin from Really Old Movies. I love old film and just old Hollywood in general. So I'm really excited to have you guys on today to add kind of your insights as well. And so let's get us started in our top five, and we'll start off with Nathan's number five. So without further ado, number five.
Here it is. Vertigo is my number five. It's so hard limiting it only to five, but at this number five spot, I got to go Vertigo. For me, Vertigo it goes completely against James Stewart norm. He's usually playing the good guy, and he's very likable in his movies. And this is one of the rare movies where I actually find myself kind of disliking him at times, where Alfred Hitchcock really wanted to make him more of a villainous role in a sense. He's not a flat out villain, but Hitchcock really wanted to show that like even the everyday man that everyone loves can be villainous in ways. And I think that's very fascinating. But beyond James Stewart and his character, the movie Vertigo is eye candy. It has amazing cinematography. Kim Novak does a great job as well in the supporting role, and really the two of them, they have a good chemistry. But the movie is one that I think it belongs in the club of movies that are even better on a rewatch. I know a few people who have seen this movie and they were kind of taken back by it. Like, wait, this is the movie that everyone loves so much. And I tell them, you have to rewatch it. And I found that every rewatch I give Vertigo, I like it more and more. I'm actually taking a trip to San Francisco next week, and we're planning on watching it in the hotel. So I'm excited for that rewatch. But Vertigo is my number five. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys will mention it, but I had to include it in my list for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm in that camp. I need to rewatch it because I wasn't a huge fan the first time.
Yeah, there you go.
So
nice.
I think I need to rewatch it then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those movies. It's like, I think the first time people watch it, for me, I was a little different because I was going into it just because love Jimmy Stewart, love Hitchcock. I didn't really know how well revered it was. Like on the Sight and Sound list, it was number one for a decade or whatever. I didn't know that it was that big of a deal. But I think a lot of people go into it with those expectations. Like, okay, according to this is the best movie of all time. So when they see it, they're like, it's kind of like Citizen Kane, where they're like, this is the best movie of all time.
Really?
And so that's why I think a rewatch, I feel the same way with Citizen Kane too. Both those movies on rewatches, you go in with different expectations and you get a completely different movie. So that's kind of why, I guess.
And I think for this movie, you need a little bit of historical context of why so many people like it. Because, like Citizen Kane, I think a lot of people don't realize what this movie did for these actors and for Hitchcock and how a little bit different on it. I need to rewatch it since I did this past year in 2022. I decided I wanted to try to catch up on all my James Stewart movies and fill in my holes. I haven't rewatched that since I've watched it as James, because I normally watch Vertigo when I'm doing my Hitchcock marathons, and I always compare it in that form, and it's always at the bottom of my list as a Hitchcock film. I need to rewatch it as looking at it as a James Stewart film and see if it will rate differently for me. You're coming to San Francisco, you're not going to be a stone thrown away. So San Francisco, I'm literally just less than an hour away.
Oh, so, no way. That's so cool.
Yeah. So seeing all those sites, I grew up going to those sites.
Wow.
We drive over the Golden Gate Bridge once a month to go to the Disney Museum. So
no way.
Yeah.
So cool.
Watching this movie and I always love watching, especially movies from this era, because you have Bullitt, you have San Francisco was such a poignant film place for a long time in the 60s and 70s. So this is right there. But what's funny is, as you described James Stewart, there's going to be a pick on my list that's going to be very similar, of him maybe not being the likable character.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. But no, this did not make my list because.
Okay, cool. And I'm guessing it didn't make Harrison's either.
Nope, it didn't.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually. I'm actually happy. I was a little worried that a lot of our lists would be the same, but this is already great. Actually, Harrison, if I could ask real quick, how many James Stewart movies have all of us seen?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think if I look at my letterbox, I want to say 10 or 11.
Nice.
I don't know. I think it's better to tell you how many I haven't seen. I think I have 7 to go.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. It's rare I meet someone who has seen more than me for James Stewart.
So, and I'm not counting his TV shows. So I'm not counting the remake of Harvey. I'm not counting anything that was just on TV. I want to watch those, but that was not part of my goal.
Yeah.
So, but I think I have 7 to go. So
very cool.
Some of them have been hard to find.
Oh yeah.
Criterion has helped me because this last month they did all, holy cow, Anthony Mann, right? He did those 5 films.
Yep.
Yeah. That helped me out because I had a couple of my missing ones. I was like, oh, great, Criterion, thank you. So
that is awesome. Nice. I'm at 52, so I still have a few to go, but that's like, I'm guessing you have like a bucket list item to watch all his movies. I'm in the same exact boat there.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. Okay, sorry. Move on to someone else's number 5.
Sure, yeah. I think. All right, we'll go to Evan's number 5.
Oh, I forgot. Right there. Go. Far Country.
There you go.
When I watched this, I got like a 5, it was the James Stewart Western DVD pack, and it just had a whole bunch of these movies, and I was like worried about it because it was cheap. It was $7, but it like had 3 movies per disc.
Yeah, I own that. I own that too.
Yeah, but the transfers are great. I was very happy with it, even on my TV. And when I put this one on, I loved it because, once again, to go to Vertigo, James Stewart is not a likable guy in this movie.
I agree.
He's not your hero. He's not your villain, but he's just not likable. He's just a guy who's doing his life. And I think it was just a nice, different Western for him too. And it's just a really cool movie to watch, and it has a nice narrative that you care about. You care about more of the overall story, not so much the people in this movie. And James Stewart carries that, and at this time that's a little different for him because he's kind of like really becoming the big star that he is, and to be able to fall back in a role and just say, hey, I'm not going to be the heartthrob or the main guy, the main hero, and step into these roles just shows you what he is doing as an actor. He's not just trying to be the main guy, but actually push himself as an actor. And this was just a different movie. And I also like that if you follow the history of Technicolor, you could see that they had fun with this one. They tried something different with the color grading and the celluloid exposures. So you could see it kind of at points gets a little too dark on the train store, but it's kind of cool that you've seen them like how we saw the ability to see CGI develop. Watching these old Technicolor movies, we forget that they were playing with it, and you kind of see that by just on what clothes they were wearing. They were saying, how can we make the red look better in t-shirts? Supposedly in this movie, they were playing with it. So I really like this one. Yeah. I probably talked way too much about it.
No, that's fine. I need to see this. I actually haven't heard of this one, so I'm glad you're mentioning it. I definitely need to check it out.
Yeah, it's a fun Western one. It's an Anthony Mann one too, so it's kind of cool there.
I'm going to say it right now. Anthony Mann and James Stewart is 10 times better than James Stewart and Hitchcock. I think they actually. I know. I'm going to say
spicy.
After watching they're doing his kind of marathon off of Criterion, I'm like going. I think both of them pull the best out of each other. Where I think the Hitchcock relationship. Hitchcock is still in control. Yeah. And I feel like the James Stewart and Anthony Mann have an equal partnership in their filmmaking.
There's balance.
Yeah. So
fair enough.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll now go to my number 5, which is The Shop Around the Corner. So I think both of you have seen this movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah. Well, I just saw it for the first time last Christmas, and I absolutely loved it. I want to say it was the best reviewed Christmas movie for last year for me. I absolutely love it. I love James Stewart in this movie and his connection with, I think it's Margaret Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. They have great chemistry together, great relationship. And, I also love the movie that is later based off of it, You've Got Mail. But what I like about this one is it seems a little bit more intimate, if that makes sense. Like, because there's not crazy set designs, there's not different scenery, really. It's really just in the store that we see their relationship develop. And I just really love that because of their acting abilities. That's how they're able to do that. And also, the directing of Ernst Lubitsch, he was incredible. Yeah, that's why I really like it, because it felt kind of like a stage play, but I think that's fine because they're all great actors, doing the best of their abilities there. And yeah, I really, really liked it.
Yeah, agreed. It's not on, I don't know if I should spoil it, but it's not on my top 5, so I'll say a quick thing about it too. But yeah, completely agree. It's a very cozy movie. I love watching it at Christmas time. I love the staff at the shop, except for one in particular, but I love the staff and just like the whole feeling of it. I mean, the ending where it's snowing, and I don't want to spoil stuff, but just like it's a very cozy movie. I'll just say that, and I agree with everything you said as well.
Nice.
Well, I don't want to go too far into mine because maybe it might show up again.
So you could say,
I think I want to go off about the stage. It looks like a play, and going on. And one of the things I love about old movies is when they adapt the play to the film, they didn't go and try to say, let's not make it feel like a play. And I think we've missed that today, where you watch these movies, no, there's a reason why it works on the play in that kind of the 2-dimension instead of the film. And I think that for this storyline, the way it feels more like a play and the sets feel like a stage set, I think is a benefit to the story because it gives you, like Nathan said, that cozy feel that if they would have tried to make it more grandeur because it's film, you would have lost that magic there. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that made me think of like Arsenic and Old Lace. That used to be a play, and it works perfectly because, like you said,
Mhm.
they kept it like a play. So I could totally see that.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to our number 4s. So take it away, Nathan.
I'm very curious. After Evan saying that he likes Mann and Stewart more than Hitchcock and Stewart, I'm curious to how Evan will feel about my list. But because started with Vertigo, now we've got Rope. So Rope is an interesting one because I've read that James Stewart actually didn't like this role. He didn't feel like it was tailored to him.
Mhm.
He felt like he was miscast in it. But I think he does a great job. I can see what he's saying because it definitely goes against the mold that a lot of his characters are. So I can see what he is saying, but I still love what we get. I think for me, Rope is impressive. Obviously, for the gimmick with the long shots, how it looks like it's all one take. I like movies like that. I like movies that feel that it's taking place in real time. So for all that, it's great. But on top of that, I think that not only James Stewart gives a great performance, but Farley Granger and the other guy's names not coming to me. But the performances by everyone are really well done. And I think I just like it's funny because no matter how many times I see it, I still get that feeling of suspense that Hitchcock is intending for us. Like when the maid almost opens up the. Have both of you seen Rope?
I haven't.
Yes.
I have not
Okay,
seen
okay.
Rope.
I won't. I'm not spoiling anything, but there's just a scene where something's almost revealed, and it's clearly a way of Hitchcock trying to leave the audience in suspense. And so my heart races every time in that scene, even though I know the outcome of it. But I think that it's just a very well made movie. I really love the cinematography, and it's like it goes so far beyond just okay. Make sure this actor steps right here and then we'll zoom into their coat and zoom out, and that's a new take. It goes so much far beyond that. The actors also have to know the choreography of the scene, where they can step so that they don't get in the way of the camera, all this stuff. And it's very impressive that not only it exists, but that it exists from 1948. So I had to pay recognition to Rope on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, highly recommend it, Harrison.
You got it. I don't know how you've not seen it. I mean,
It's so good.
yeah, I might have to keep my mouth shut because I don't know if it might show up later too. No, the only thing I'm gonna add, James Stewart hated it, and supposedly Hitchcock hated it too. He thought he thought he did a poor job with the long shots. Supposedly he didn't enjoy the outcome. He wished he did a little bit more. He said, I think what's funny as we say we liked it. What we liked about it, I think he said he hated about it. Like he said, it felt too much like a play. But here, I'm saying that because I read it somewhere. I haven't been able to find Hitchcock saying it yet, or the quote where he does it. So I'm going to say that with a grain of salt on that.
Well, I know that I think it's called Under Capricorn. It's the one that Hitchcock made after Rope. Ingrid Bergman, I know, had a hard time. That has the same gimmick of long shots, and I read that Ingrid Bergman had a hard time with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stewart also had a hard time with it.
But I think Stewart had a hard time because he didn't think he got in the mind of the character.
Yeah, it just wasn't his kind of character.
But I think that's what brings it. I think that's what makes it so fun to watch.
Yeah,
is you could see him struggling, and he's not as comfortable as he is in his other roles.
Yeah, it's so true.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I need to check it out. All right, Evan, you're number 4.
Number 4 is Harvey. So James Stewart, if you haven't, have both of you seen Harvey?
I haven't, but I own it on VHS.
Well, you gotta watch it.
I have.
I guess I gotta put it on. Huh?
I have a sticker of Harvey on my journal. Actually, it's really random.
Can you see it, or is it invisible?
Hey, you got me there. Yeah, I guess I could say that about anything. I could say, yeah, I have Harvey. He's right here. Can't you see him?
No, duh.
What do you?
So I remember my dad really liking this movie, talked about this movie, and I remember watching it with him when I was a kid, thinking it was kind of just silly and didn't know what to do. But I've always kind of gone back to it, and I just kind of constantly fall in love with it because I think James Stewart loves it. So he played this on Broadway. He's played this character twice on film, so he remakes it in 1972. I think it might be a TV movie remake. I want to say 1972 off of the top of my head. So you could just see his love for this character. I tried to find it because I remember reading it and I couldn't find it. It might be in one of my books. I was looking online. Supposedly, he does not take his normal salary to do this film because he loves it, because it costs like almost close to $1 million to buy the rights to do the movies, I think. So very high rights. And so he goes, I'll do it for a smaller fee if I get some back end points for him to do it. And he's the very first actor supposedly to ask for back end points on that. So like what Tom Cruise and all these actors do, like James Stewart was the kind of supposedly one of the first ones, says, give me the lower wage as long as I get the back end points. And he ends up making more money because Harvey does very well and makes their budget. So he actually gets more than what he would have been paid flat out. Supposedly. Once again, I have this information. I was like, let me double check it because I'm an historian. So I look at it and I couldn't find it. I was like, oh crap, is it in his book? Because I have a biography on him. So I'm wondering if that's where I read it. But it's packed away. I couldn't pull it out. So, but this movie is just charming. It's I don't know, the pacing sounds right. The ridiculousness of it is just perfect. I just love the film. I don't know how else to describe it, because if I tell you what it's about, it sounds stupid. It sounds like it should be good. But the way it plays out should be more like a slapstick comedy kind of days, but it actually doesn't. It plays off as a charming film with some ridiculous moments that just play out perfectly. So
it's
I
very
love the
feel
film.
good.
Yes.
That's how I would describe it. Great movie. And I found that also this is one of those movies that I have friends who aren't into older movies, but they've randomly seen this one. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I don't know why you've seen this, but I'm not complaining at all. That is so cool. Like it's actually come up because of the sticker on my journal. They'll be like, oh, is that Harvey? And I'm like, yeah, it's Harvey. And it creates a whole conversation where I'm like, you've seen this movie? And so it's, really good movie.
Nice. All right. We'll move on to my number 4, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. This is a great film. Again, Jimmy Stewart does incredible in this. I love that even though he's kind of a weaker character, like physically compared to John Wayne, it seems to me like mentally he's like a whole lot more tougher. You know, I think of the scene where Liberty Valance like knocks John Wayne's plate down and he's like, no, I'm going to pick it up. Jimmy Stewart, he's like, no, I'm going to pick it up. I don't need anyone to help me. You know, I love that scene. And just all around, it's a great, great film. I don't want to get too much into it because I want people to enjoy it, you know, because it's one of those where there's a famous line in it where it's, you know, if you have, I'm butchering it, but if you have the story, print the legend, basically, something like that. I just love that, you know, it kind of feeds into the mythos of the Western and just, you know, how that inspired people and how it affected people. And, you know, they're basically superheroes, the old cowboys, right? So yeah, I really like that aspect of it. And yeah, I don't know what else to add. It's just a really good movie. If you've never seen a Western, I think this is a good one to start off with because it kind of shows you a foray into that genre. So
yeah, this one is right outside my top 5. I was very sad I couldn't include it. It's literally number 6, but I love this one. This is another one of those ones. I don't think it's like Citizen Kane and Vertigo in the sense where like you'll enjoy it more when you rewatch it. But for me, in my case, for some reason, I enjoyed it more on a rewatch. I like when movies begin with the future, and this movie does that. It begins with the future, and then it goes back in time to what our story is. And I think this one was especially successful at that. So just had to throw that in there.
So I'm going to start off is I hate John Wayne. So nice. I'm not a big John Wayne fan at all. I do enjoy John Ford. So like I own The Searcher and I watched The Searcher despite John Wayne because that movie is just beautifully filmed. That's just to get that out there. But can I just say this? I love this film. So even with John Wayne, I think this is John Wayne's so far the best film I've seen him in. I felt he
I'd
actually
agree with that. I do too.
I think he acts. He doesn't just come in and say, "Hey, I'm John Wayne. I'm going to say some lines," and then everyone likes that. I felt there was a story arc for him. I love the idea of masculinity of like you have the John Wayne and you have a more soft-spoken James Stewart masculinity conversation. I think you kind of mentioned that earlier in yours, Harrison, and I like that this is not a typical John Ford movie. So everyone kind of, it's not just your typical movie for everyone because John Ford doesn't do his sweeping, big, huge, shots all the time in this one. This is more of a kind of a straight and narrow movie for him that I feel like I was like going, okay, how are you going to do the story with John Ford behind the camera? So I've always kind of avoided this one because of John Wayne and hearing about the story. I'm like, I don't want that story to be from Ford because Ford just loves those wide shots and like, is he going to get this seems like it needs a different, and I think everyone just does great on this. So it's toying with my top 10. So it might be at 10, might be at 11. And that's shocking to anyone who actually knows me because they know how passionately I do not like John Wayne. So I would highly recommend this movie for anyone, even if you dislike John Wayne, because it's a great film.
And that speaks volumes about it, especially with your distaste for John Wayne. I don't hate him, but I'm not a big fan of him either. I think he's pretty overrated. And I usually don't find myself liking his characters in movies. I like what you said, where he just shows up, delivers his lines. I feel that same way about him. But yeah, I completely agree where in this movie, he just doesn't bother me like he bothers me in other movies I've seen him in.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to number 3.
Hitchcock again, huh?
Yeah, when you said that thing, I looked at my list and I'm like, the first 3 movies are all Hitchcock. I was like, oh gosh. But for what it's worth, I don't have The Man Who Knew Too Much here, so we're done after this one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the last Hitchcock one. This is my favorite Stewart Hitchcock pairing, obviously. It's also my my second favorite Hitchcock movie of all time. I love Rear Window. It's have you guys, I'm guessing you both have seen this one?
Yeah, it may or may not show up on my list.
Oh, okay. Cool.
We're just excited that Harrison got to say yes on one of ours.
I know.
Oh, man. But yeah, I love Rear Window. It's that movie that for some reason it works so well. I think that it works way better than it has any right to work. It's just something about being in the neighborhood and the neighborhood being almost like a central character of the film, where you get to know the lives of all these neighbors, yet you don't even know a lot of their names. They have nicknames for them and everything. And like the everyday activities of these neighbors. And it really changes the idea of like a peeping Tom, really. That was playing in theaters a few years ago, and I saw it in theaters, and that made me like it even more, honestly. But I think what I love about this one is I remember talking once with a friend about how we were watching the movie, and she said, man, this must have been a pretty easy role for James Stewart. He's like, all he has to do is sit in a wheelchair. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like, wait a second. No, that makes this a hard role because all he does is sit in a wheelchair. So he really has to sell his character to us and make us believe what he's seeing, how he feels, all of that, all from the all being confined to a wheelchair. Like he can't move or anything. And so I kind of think it's the opposite, where he has to give an amazing performance to really sell it for us. So I won't talk all the ears off anymore on Rear Window, but just know I love this one. And it's the final 20 minutes always have my heart racing. I think it's incredible. So
absolutely.
I'm going to be quiet before I keep talking.
Yeah. No, I love this one. This did not make my list just because I think I wanted to pick all the ones I've kind of discovered in the last year and stuff.
Nice.
But it's a great movie. I have no complaints. It's perfect. I love how real and surreal the neighborhood looks. Like
Yeah.
Hitchcock just does it perfectly. And then what I think that a lot of people don't give James Stewart is his subtlety of acting, and this movie shows it because when his love interest walks in and how his face and his love and adoration for her and his struggle and all that, he does that not with very many words. It's all in his face, and we feel it. We see the tension between the two. And is this Grace Kelly? Is it?
Yeah, it's Grace Kelly. Yep.
Yeah, Grace Kelly. The two of them are both so elegant. I don't want to use Grace because it's her name. Graceful, but elegant, and the way their relationship is. It's just a suspenseful film while being beautiful all at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe people who just watch the story and don't look at the nuance of the film. It's a great film. It's almost a near perfect film. I don't know what faults you could have with it.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll save my thoughts because it may or may not show up, but I'll just add, I love the villain in this movie. And it may be a spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, tune out now. But I just love the scene where he like looks up and he's looking right at the camera.
Such a good scene.
Your heart drops when you see that. It's incredible. Incredibly suspenseful, and no dialogue either. It's almost a silent film, honestly, in some of the scenes. But yeah, no, I agree. It's a fantastic movie. All right, Evan.
I don't remember
number 3.
There you go. Shop around the corner.
Nice.
It's higher up. I picked this one. Really, I'm just gonna say, if you want the perfect James Stewart as the young actor who just is that romantic lead that's funny and sweet and loving and just this before he goes off to war in kind of actor, this is to me the perfect film to show that. And it's just, we've talked already about it's lovely, it's sweet, and I think he's just perfect. He has perfect timing. And this movie shows that timing on when to be funny, when to be sweet, when to be smart, when to be kind of a hard, like all the emotions a human has. This movie shows off this perfect timing on how to express one's emotions.
Amen.
Agreed. I think one of my favorite scenes is when she's like sick in bed and he's talking to her about her pen pal, or I guess love interest, but it's him. I just love it so much. He's like, "Oh, really?
That's so clever."
It's so funny. I love it.
And can we just say that Tom Hanks for the remake and Meg Ryan were perfect to kind of carry on the honor of these roles, because both films stand on their own and honor this old one, and it's great. So watch both and watch them back to back, because I think they're enough different that they're enjoyable back to back. So this is it's a great film.
Yep, I agree. All right, so my number 3 is Rear Window.
Whoa, look at that! Hey, that's a good movie.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about it yet. Everything you said, Nathan, it's incredible. I just love, how the apartment building is a character on its own, and just all the crazy, wacky things that happen around in that neighborhood. And like I said, it's almost a silent film because there's not a whole lot of dialogue. Like, we don't hear what any of his neighbors are saying or doing, but we could tell what they're doing just with their actions. So yeah, it's really, really good. Probably it's not my favorite Hitchcock film, but it's in the top 3 for sure. It's excellent.
Yeah, I was going to throw a quick plug in for the there's a board game, Rear Window.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it came out, I think, either last year or 2 years ago, and I bought it because it was on Barnes & Noble. Every December they do a 50% off sale for all hardback books and all board games, and so I got Rear Window. And I'm not going to lie, it's a great game. I don't know if you guys have ever played Code Names, but it's very similar to that.
Okay, no, I haven't played
that. Yeah, it's like it totally is true to the movie too. I'm not gonna. Here's the game. Let me lay out all the rules. No, but like just in a quick nutshell, it's very similar to the movie where you're seeing what activities the neighbors are doing and you're making assumptions. You're saying, "Oh, that neighbor is like a musician because of this," and you're making assumptions. But then there's another person like giving you clues. They're like trying to tell you what the neighbor actually is doing, and you're guessing what they're doing based on the clues. So it's interesting, but it's totally like the movie where you see the neighbor and you assume what they're doing based on the hints that you have. So really good adaptation, I guess you could say. But anyways, I'll stop now. Rear window now.
No,
I get worried about those board games because I always think, well, did they just pick them? Like there's E.T., there's now Godfather, there's every single movie board game, and I'm like, you're just trying to get me to buy it. Is this actually a good game?
Yeah.
How many games can there be out in the world? So it's good to hear that it's actually a good game because I don't buy them because I just get
it's a fun game. It's a fun game, and for fans of the movie, it's even better because it's very true to the theme of the movie, which I was like, we were playing it, and it made me love the movie even more. So really good.
Now, the only thing I'm going to add here is that my favorite scene is when the couple has to go in when it's raining and pull in the bed. And that the fact that Hitchcock said, you go in this window, and then told the other one to go in the other window, but didn't tell them that they were going in opposite windows. So you see them struggle, and they look at each other, and they actually go, what are you doing? And they actually kind of are frustrated at each other. And Hitchcock just has that wide scene and go, that's what I wanted.
What a sad
he wanted that natural reaction, and he knew how to do that. So,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great film. So, and so many movies today copy this formula. There's that Shia LaBeouf movie, which is good. I forget which one is that called.
Disturbia.
Yeah. There's the woman in the
window.
Netflix window something.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of movies copy that. Can't leave the apartment, but let's talk. Kimmy was another one that takes that kind of basic storyline. So it's a lot of people have copied this kind of method, and you always know that that's the director trying to honor Hitchcock in that storyline. So I'm excited for Nathan's number 2. It's not going to be a Hitchcock film.
Yeah. Well, let's see. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's what if I lied and it was The Man Who Knew Too Much? You're like, no!
That'd be hilarious.
So funny enough, Harrison and I literally just did a podcast episode about Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So I've really spoken about this movie. Like I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but I'll still just give a quick plug for the film. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, in a nutshell, it is not only number 2 James Stewart movie, it resides in my top 10 movies of all time. I love the underdog story. I'm a big fan of underdog stories. Normally we see those kinds of stories in sports films. Like I think Rocky's the go-to example, but this one I think is 100% an underdog film. I also love movies where this isn't necessarily like a rebellion film, but I love movies where there's someone small and they're taking on a large organization, like a little voice taking on a big voice. That's exactly what this movie is. And then also, it's a really special movie to me because in high school, I had to take a theater class. It was like to graduate, it was either take ceramics or take theater. So I chose theater. And part of it, we had to do a monologue from a famous movie. And this was right when I was kind of getting into becoming a James Stewart fan. And I found this movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the filibuster scene. And I didn't do the whole filibuster, but I did there's a segment of the filibuster that right when it starts, anytime I rewatch it, I'm like, that's where my monologue starts and that's where it ends. And every time I hear it, I have it warms my heart because I had to perform that in front of a whole my class on a stage and everything, and it just warms my heart. And then so that's one really special.
Should we make you say it now? I mean,
no, absolutely not. Yeah, no, definitely not. I couldn't do it now. I just remember. I don't know if you guys remember in the movie when he whistles to get everyone's attention, but I remember that was part of the monologue I was doing, and I don't know how to do that whistle where it's really loud. So I just like yelled. I was just like, "Hey!" because I couldn't whistle. So that was like how I did it. But and then one other
I can't
thing.
whistle either, just to let you know.
Okay, cool. I can like do a normal whistle, but I can't do that really loud one where the people put the fingers in their mouth. I can't do that. But no, this movie is also just like a great love letter to America. There's like a whole montage where you just get a mini history lesson almost, where you're just seeing, you know, our founding fathers and his love for his country. And he's just such a great main character, so lovable. And every time I watch it, I just fall in love with it again and again. So that's my love letter to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Well said.
Thank you very much.
So, to be shocked, I'm not a fan of this one.
No.
It's not even like in my top 10. So, yeah, and it should not. It should be, because if anyone knows me, so my undergrad, I got my BA in history, and my undergrad was the founding fathers, constitutional history. So I should love it, but my problem with it is going to be Jean Arthur.
Jean Arthur, yeah.
Yeah. I find her. I want her to be strong, but I find her overbearing at times. Yeah. And I do not feel the same chemistry. Holy cow! Lost her name from the girl from Shop Around the Corner.
Margaret Sullivan.
Yeah, Margaret Sullivan.
Yeah. That's going to play later, maybe with my number one. If you actually know the other movies they were in, you would know my number one right now. But,
oh my gosh, that's a cool one.
I just wished for kind of a better chemistry. So I think I get more sad about that when I see them on screen together. And I'm like, oh, I wanted more of because I want a strong woman and I want someone like that, but I also want them to be more. I don't believe they love each other. I don't believe they're falling for each other. I don't believe
it is that
aspect. It is. So I think I have a hard time with it. I need to revisit it. So I've seen it about 3 times.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it's not like I watched it one and done, but I need to revisit it now again after I watched this past year and say, let me do it again. Because I just rewatched it earlier in the year in my movie club. We did it as my movie club. So it's a good film. It's hard to knock this film because I don't want to knock it and say it's a bad film. It's not a bad film. You know what I mean? We're now like I'm just nitpicking because of great work. I mean, it's not a bad film. Watch it. It's important. It's lovely, but I'm picking it out of my top 5, right? I'm talking about mine.
No, totally, yeah.
So yeah.
No, and I love that you mentioned that you've seen it 3 times too, because it makes me respect your opinion on it even more. I think that if you had only seen it once, then my first thought would be, okay, well, try it again, give it another try. Yeah. But the fact that you've seen it multiple times, like, well, even if you didn't like it on one viewing, I wouldn't judge or anything, but I appreciate that. I think that proves that, like, okay, like you have legit problems with it, and that's okay, kind of thing. I can't really speak. I was gonna say, so far in your list, I think Far Country is the biggest one that I kind of disagree with. I wasn't as big of a fan of that one, but that one I've only seen once, so I can't say anything because I'm not in the same boat. But it just proves that, like, it's just interesting, and the points you made, I agree with. Like, I think that I can see why their love, like what you're saying about their love story, is a little rushed. It's almost like it's focused on the filibuster and taking down the big boys. And then they're like, but we got to have a romance. And
love story
tacked on. Yeah.
So I think
they should have left it off.
I can see that.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer. You could watch a movie. If you dislike it, watch it again.
Yeah.
Because you might have had a bad experience. So that was for me with The Godfather. I used to hate. I watched The Godfather many times, but there was one time I thought it was okay. But there was one time when I was like 18, 19, I watched The Godfather and I just fell in love. And I now watch it yearly. You know, awesome. But so I'm all about revisiting films because there's something about your life or you've done in difference. Going to point out, it's a little side, but before our conversation, we were talking about The Last Jedi.
Oh,
and I used to not like the Luke story arc, and because I didn't understand it. But my life circumstances have happened and made me kind of jaded. And so now when I watch it, I go, oh, I understand Luke a little bit better. So I've actually, because of my real life circumstance, I've enjoyed Last Jedi more because of Luke's story arc, because of my life. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Yeah.
So I'm all for revisiting films, because even ones you disliked, unless it's for, I think, certain reasons that
Sure.
outside you can't watch it because of, you don't like abuse of women or something, like something
Sure.
bad
Something you don't agree with. Yeah.
yeah. Don't revisit. But just because it didn't make sense, rewatch it.
Yeah.
I can feel
I've taken one film class in my life, but the one film class in the textbook, I remember it said how you can't really judge a movie until you've seen it at least 2 times. And even then, it's still not completely fair. Like, you can only really fairly judge a movie when you've seen it 3 or 4 times. And I totally agree with it. But I can't think of that, because then I stress out thinking, oh my gosh, all these movies that I've only seen 1 time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'll kind of save my thoughts, because this may or may not show up on my list.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna
But-
quickly say I apologize for my lighting, guys. My lighting system it's out right now, so I'm literally just in a room going off the light of my computer screen in this light right here. So I apologize about that.
Don't worry. That was me last week on a stream. So
Okay, cool.
I'm only looking this good because I'm doing the iPhone camera thing that Apple just announced. It introduced it last year. So I'm using my iPhone as my camera. That's the only reason why this looks good.
Oh, very cool. Okay, cool.
Well, and I'm cheap, so I don't even pay for the 4K streaming anyway. So everybody's 720p.
Oh,
What?
great.
I'm leaving.
So everybody looks a little fuzzy anyway. So
Yeah, that's hilarious.
all right.
What's my number 2? I forget my number 2.
Evans.
Oh no, there's my number 2.
A Hitchcock film, huh?
Whoa, what is this here I see? What?
Check out.
The Rope is my favorite Hitchcock film, and my favorite James Stewart Hitchcock film.
Oh, that's cool.
So I have seen this movie, I don't know how many times. I'm going probably 50 or 60. Anytime someone says I haven't seen The Rope, well, I know what we're doing tonight.
It's so easy to watch.
It's short.
Yeah, totally.
It is one of my. I remember having it on VHS. I had to buy it again because I wore it out, and I wore out a DVD. And so I have not upgraded to the 4Ks. I still have all my Hitchcock DVDs because the Blu-rays, I did not like any of the transfers. I thought my DVDs look better than the Blu-rays. I mean, because you know how they do the DNR transfers on the Blu-rays? And I thought Hitchcock's, all the edges were so soft on most of the Blu-rays I saw. So I said, I'm just keeping my DVDs. So I need to upgrade to the 4K. But my mom buys them on 4K and then gives me the digital codes.
Oh, nice.
So I stream them in 4K. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to save my money because my DVDs are still good.
There you go.
But The Rope, you got to see The Rope. I mean, if you want to see, it's just an amazing story, and the acting, everyone top notch. Everyone's number one. I mean, I don't know how this said, every single Academy Award for acting should just go to everyone here, because I truly don't know. Even James Stewart not liking it and feeling he's not doing a good job, he pulls it off. And it's just a fun movie to watch, because we know it's one of those movies. I'm going to tell you, we know what happens. We know the crime that happens. So how is it going to be solved? So it's a typical Columbo or a Matlock or Murder, She Wrote type story where we get to know the crime, but how are we going to have our star solve the mystery? Harrison, do you at all know what the story's about?
I just know there's like a dead guy in a box or something, and the 2 murderers are still in the room or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll give it. two guys murder someone and want to brag that they can get away with murder, and they invite their teacher and they invite the guy who they murdered's family over.
Oh my gosh.
It's such dark humor. It's very dark, very
It's
dark
very
humor,
dark.
very Hitchcockian. Yeah.
But it's one of those like
sadistic.
Banshee at Sharon. What's that movie that just came out?
The Banshees of Inisherin.
Have you guys seen that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so that movie is so depressing, but you are smiling and having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Rope is the same way. And
Okay.
I feel like you're just having such a good time. But it's about a murder. I was shocked when it was that low on your list, to tell you the truth, Nathan. How is that not your number one?
I was shocked when you said it's your favorite Hitchcock. I think that's amazing, and even more proof that Harrison should watch it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll drive all the way up to your house, Evan. Then we'll watch it, right? So you can watch it for your 60th.
I got it on DVD. Let's go. You have it on VHS, so.
Actually, do I? I might actually have it on VHS. I have a lot of the Hitchcocks on VHS.
That's awesome.
All right. Okay, here's my number 2. A little film.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
In your face, Evan. No,
That's right. I swear.
You guys matched on the last two for number 3 and number 2.
I swear it was unintentional. We did not look at each other's lists.
we might match on number 1 too, Harrison. I'm guessing we do.
We do.
Okay, I knew it.
Oh no,
that's hilarious.
It was not how I was intending it, but I'll just add to what Nathan said. I love the filibuster scene, and in I think it's in 2 weeks, the episode he and I did together about this will be coming out. So if you want more in depth there, check that out. But that filibuster scene, man, it's so good. And I gotta say, Claude Rains is really good in this movie too. He's good as kind of because at first, they're kind of friends, and then kind of backstabs him and all of that. And it's really, really tragic and interesting and really, really cool. And it makes you wonder, if this kind of stuff happens all the time in Washington. And I also love too, they never say what state Jimmy Stewart's from. They never say his party, any of that. They keep it completely not anonymous, but they just don't tell you that. So it could be applicable forever. Like, I think this movie is just as applicable today as it was when it came out.
Is it a coded film?
Like a Hays Code?
Yeah. Did it come out?
Probably. It came out in 39, I think. So
yeah, 39.
I'm pretty sure it would have been.
I wonder if that played into why they didn't mention as much on his political party.
Well, I know that even when it was screening, I read some behind the scenes, and I know that I think Harrison, he might actually say this in the podcast, but
probably.
I know that some governors, there was some sort of advanced screening for maybe the actual Senate. I can't remember, but people walked out on it because they had some ideas of what they were referencing. So it's probably good that they don't ever mention the political parties, because I think it would have caused an uproar.
Oh, definitely.
It's one of those movies that if you know the history and you know what they're doing, you know what party he is. You know more where he's leaning, what he's fighting against. But if you don't know, I think it's more of a great introduction to kind of a little bit of how government kind of has worked before and stuff like that. That's why it's one of those movies I do recommend people go, hey, you want to understand this idea, watch this movie. I also give a couple of episodes of West Wing. If I go, if you want to understand kind of the basic idea here, watch West Wing in this episode and stuff like that. And I think this movie does a good job. That's why I'm a firm believer. If we did another category of great political movies, this movie will be higher up on my list, on my James Stewart list. So I think you're able to look at movies with different criteria and make different lists for it. But
definitely,
it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
I guess I'm going to find out Harrison's number 1 now, huh?
Maybe. All right, here's Nathan's number 1.
Okay, I think this is probably the most cliche number 1 you could have, but in my defense, this is my favorite movie of all time. So it has to be my favorite James Stewart movie, of course. But for me, this is my favorite movie of all time, my favorite Christmas movie, favorite all of the above, Frank Capra, black and white, like all of that. It wins for the top ranking. It's just the message of it. Obviously, I saw it for the first time in high school, and I remember this was that movie that I discovered James Stewart. I can't remember even what the first movie was. Maybe it might have been Mr. Smith. I don't remember, but I was getting into James Stewart. I had that Hitchcock Blu-ray combo pack where it came with like 20 films or whatever. And so I'd seen Rear Window. I was watching Rope, all those movies, and I knew Wonderful Life existed. I knew he was in it, but I hadn't seen it. And one night I was finally like, you know what? I love this James Stewart guy. I want to finally see this movie that's kind of like his big movie. And I remember just being amazed by it. Like I remember liking it, and then like the movie happens and I'm like, okay, like this is solid. I can see what people like. And then the ending happens and I was like, oh my goodness, why? Like, how is a movie this good? And through the years, it just crept up my ranking and became eventually my number one movie. And it's been at number one for about about 8 years now. So
Number one of all time.
yeah, number one of all time.
Okay.
I've claimed that. It was, I remember, it's really random. I remember it was Christmas 2015 that I was like, no, this is my favorite movie of all time. It beat out my other number one. So a lot of things going for it. But the biggest thing is I'm a sucker for movies that talk about living life to the fullest, loving the life that you have, being grateful for the good and the bad kind of thing. And this movie checks all those boxes, and it's the ultimate feel-good film. And it's one that I do watch every year. Some years I watch twice in a year. And when I look at my all-time stats on Letterboxd, this is the most watched movie. So I'm also kind of proud of that. But I'll give room for Harrison to talk about it a little bit too. But I have a whole video on my channel discussing this. It's like why Wonderful Life's my favorite movie. So just watch that. But that's the very summarized version of why I love Wonderful Life so much.
Should I go? Should I start
go
off
for
and
it.
say I've only seen the colorized version? No, just joking.
Oh no!
No. That would have. Oh god!
I've only seen that once. It was bad.
I almost just left the chat. Like I almost just left. Goodness, I've seen the colorized version once, and like I don't hate it, but it's just like I never choose to. It's kind of like these live action Disney remakes. Like you see them once, and you're like, all right, I don't ever have to watch it again because I like the original. That's kind of how I feel with the colorized version. It's like I've seen it before, but I'm gonna stick with the black and white.
I'm wholeheartedly against colorization of films.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they keep releasing it on it because then you could show people how bad it was.
Yeah, amen. Well, even James Stewart and Frank Capra were against it. So when they that says that
came out against Turner. Because Ted Turner was the big one for it.
Really?
Yeah. So that's how he paid for all that.
Interesting.
When he started doing TCM, he said, "Put in my color because no one wants to watch black and white on your nice color TV." So,
yikes! No.
Yeah, he was a big, and then that's when they went after all the actors that stopped doing it, and that's when they started to show colorized and black and white. So they would do them often black and white during the 90s and stuff like that. So you got to pick which version you wanted.
Interesting.
So I'm going to say this one. I have not fallen in love with this film yet. I've watched it once, probably 3 times. Nice. It has not clicked for me. I should like it. But I think the length for me, there's a little pacing issues I have with it. I love the ending. It's sweet. I love the beginning. I love it. It's that middle part, I think, for me, it just hasn't clicked for me, but it should. So I think I've tried to watch it since I bought a couple years ago. I bought the better Blu-ray transfer. Remember they redid that? I think forget which version, but I remember they rescanned it and it was better. And I bought that, and I've kind of watched it every other year since then because I'm like going, I should love this film. I want to love this film. And then it hasn't hit for me because I love Christmas. I love feel-good movies, and I love James Stewart. So how do I not love this film? That's to me.
Mhm.
And when I talk about I love feel good movies, have you guys seen that movie Yesterday
Mm.
about when the Beatles disappear
Yeah,
after a
yeah, I
blackout?
have.
Okay, that movie is such a fun feel good movie, and I don't know if it was during because it was 2020. I've since that movie I discovered in 2020, I've watched that movie close to 25 to 30 times in the last
Wow.
3 years.
That's
So
crazy.
I've
I
seen it
love.
once, and it was in theaters.
Oh yeah, I love that movie. And my
Nice.
movie club friends, they were making fun of me because they're like, "That movie's kind of dumb." I'm like, but I love it. I love it.
That's funny.
Shut up,
And
guys! You
so,
don't know.
but no, I love the opening. Like I could talk how much. It's one of those things. I could tell you why it's great. I could tell you why it's amazing. I could tell you why it is, but it doesn't get my heart. If that's the best way
Mhm.
to describe it. So I don't want to knock it. So,
Yeah,
but that's why it's not on my list because it's not.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, this one may or may not show up on my list.
We already
There's
know.
one movie
We already
left.
know.
Wait, what? Really?
We already know.
So I'll save it for that. So let's go to Evan's number one.
Ah.
Oh my gosh, I love you, Evan.
Oh,
Oh,
um,
this makes me so happy. Okay,
yes.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just glad someone else has seen the movie.
No,
Um,
it's my number 9. But it's a 10 out of 10 James Stewart movie for me. It's my number
Okay.
9 on my ranking though.
well, that's a little too low. Okay.
Well, fair enough. But it is a 10 out of 10. It is a 10.
Yes, I totally get that. So last year, I'm scrolling through HBO Max, and there it was. I went, it's a James Stewart movie. The poster looks terrible. And I'm like, am I getting a vaudeville movie? What am I doing? Because it's the same cover art on HBO Max. I mean, he looks like he's wearing blush and lipstick. I'm like,
Yep.
what kind of movie am I going to get? But it's James Stewart. I said, I'm going to watch it. And this was before I watched Shop Around the Corner. So, because I just watched Shop Around the Corner this last year. And I fell in love. So, as I've shared, I'm an American historian. I'm into politics. I'm into modern day politics. I'm into studying how. I'm not into battles. I don't like battles. I like to look at the home front. I like to look at how it affects people. So, like for instance, when I had to study the Civil War, I didn't study like the battles. I studied on my undergrad. I looked at how the South looked at Lincoln, like what were the writings about him, and then in my master's, I looked at how the birth rate population dropped and how that affected certain towns and cities. So I'm all about culture. So that's why I love film and I find them important. And this film is important today as it was when it came out, talking about the rise of Nazism and talking about, because you see them. Have you seen it, Harrison?
Nope.
I would have been a little shocked if he had said yes. It's a very
I know. I was gonna
movie.
go. You got to watch it. So it's one of the very first Wars II movies that covered American film that covers the Nazis before we entered the war. So this movie comes out before that. Was that 1939, 38? I can't remember the year.
I think it was actually like 41 or something. Let me see.
Was it 41?
It is.
Okay.
Just one second. It's loading for me. It's in the 40s. I know it might be
Okay.
It's 1940.
1940.
1940. Okay.
Yep.
I wasn't too far off. But it covers, like, it's in Austria, and James Stewart is an educator, American educator. We see the opening scene is beautiful. Professor is being honored, and then you see Hitler winning and Nazis start to rise, and he goes, "Don't worry, I'm not going to be touched. I'm so well loved in my town. I'm a great educator." And then he doesn't succumb to what they're asking him to teach, and then he's kind of kicked out, and all the Burke banning and all the stuff that happens, and it just handles the topic so well that I just fell in love with the movie. I fell in love with the topic, and James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan are just amazing. I mean, to do this film before we even enter the war, to do this film for how strong of a performance they did. And I'm going to tell you, the script is kind of weak. It starts off strong, but by the end of the movie, it's kind of a weak script, but they carry it through. You know, those two, if it wasn't those two, I don't think I would have loved the movie as much. These two do a great job. It's a great movie. It helps you contextualize conversations that we're having now, but understand that they were generations before having the same conversation. And for me, that always makes me feel better, saying that we don't live in this time bubble. We live in a context of history, and people are having the debate, the conversation, and how you handle it. We can look to the past, but I'm a historian, so I love that stuff. So it's a great film. People were annoyed at me for like 2 months because literally I watched it on HBO, bought it the same night. I have recommended it so many times. When I saw it going off of HBO Max, I probably texted like 20 people saying, "You got to watch this movie before it goes."
I love that.
So I'll stop talking. Watch the movie. Even if you don't like politics, I probably got a little too much into that. Still watch the movie. It's still important. It's a great film outside of that.
I'm only looking down because I'm looking at my logs. So I've seen it 2 times. I discovered it in May 2018, and I remember it was I think it was playing on TCM. I think May 2018 was maybe James Stewart was the star of the month of TCM or something, because I remember they were playing a lot, and I recorded it, and I remember the description of it. It said something like ending with a thrilling ski chase and snowy mountains, and I was like, I was just kind of like, all right, I'll watch the Mortal Storm movie because that sounds intriguing. And like you said, the opening's very strong. And I watched it. And I remember by the time the movie ended, I was completely shocked. It was a movie I went in knowing nothing really, except for that there was a ski chase. And by the time it ended, I was shocked. And this was the movie that for a long time, anytime I emailed the Criterion Collection for suggestions, I would always include the Mortal Storm. I even sent some with just the Mortal Storm. I just said, please release the Mortal Storm. And I have hope that they may someday. I mean, Warner Archives recently released it on Blu-ray, so that's great enough for me. Like, at least we have that. But Criterion has released Frank Berzaghi, whatever. They have 2 of his movies, the director. They have 2 of his movies on the collection already, with History's Made at Night, and I can't think of what the other one's called, but it's like, I've seen it. I can't think of what it's called. But anyways, so what I'm saying is it's possible, and I hope someday we get it in the Criterion Collection, but at least we have a Blu-ray to hold us over if we never get it. But yeah, just completely agree with the praise, and I love it even more because it's a bold pick. It's a movie that not a lot of people have seen, so this is the exact kind of format where like we need to be shouting it out. So thank you for doing what I couldn't do.
So Harrison, you got homework to do. You got to go watch
Sounds
at
like
least
it.
The Rope and Mortal Storm.
Yes.
All right.
Amen.
Yes. Okay. Well, my number 1 is a movie you've probably never heard of. It's called It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh,
That's my favorite poster. Can I just say that?
That's a great
I love
poster.
that poster.
It's a great poster.
I love that poster.
Yeah, see, that's why I put it on mine, not on Nathan's, because I liked it on mine more. No.
Which which poster did I get again? Can you go back to my poster somehow? Okay, that's
I think
like
that's the Blu-ray one or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a nice DVD Blu-ray release poster. I appreciate it.
I like the family, but I'll tell you that other poster, without knowing what the film is, just on itself, It's a Wonderful Life. It has that old time feeling. Him lifting up it just gives you the good vibes.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And I'll just add, I just love the whole character arc of George Bailey and how relatable he is, and just, I'm sure you all know this too, but just learning that this was one of the first movies he did after the war. So some of the scenes where he's going a little crazy, right? He's, thinking of ending his life. He kind of went deep into his soul, the real dark parts of it, because he was traumatized, for being in the Second World War. So it just feels really real and really gritty. And I just love that about James Stewart in this movie, and that's why it's my favorite one by him. I love him in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, but to me, this is probably his quintessential cream of the crop, whatever you want to say, magnum opus. This is really
Exactly.
the best acting he's ever done, or he ever did, I should say. He's not alive anymore, but yeah, no, I love it. I also love it because it's one of the first Frank Capra movies I saw, and so now I've seen, I think 7 or 8 of his now, and just really how talented of a director he was, and just all around great cast, great cinematography, great everything about it. And I could see why it's one of the best Christmas movies ever, why people replay it over and over again, even though I'm pretty sure they just did that because it was in the public domain and people just picked it up, right? But
yeah,
it's a great movie to do that with. So, if more people saw it, more power to it. But yeah, I love this movie. I want to say it's my top 15, top 10 movies.
Nice.
It's great. I love it.
That's so cool. I had to quickly point out to Evan, my first 3 were Hitchcock, Stewart, and my top 2 were Capra and Stewart. So there's
no Anthony Mann. I mean, what are you doing there?
Come on, man.
No, we had a good bunch of movies that I think if someone who hasn't watched James Stewart just went with, I don't know how many we have with the doubles up, just watch the movies we had, we'll get a nice well-rounded piece of cinema. So
I agree.
It's a great bunch of movies.
Yeah, and
do we have any honorable mentions? Because I have one.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nathan mentioned he had a whole bunch of other ones he wanted to mention. So yeah, go for it.
I was thinking about maybe instead of doing my top 5, doing top 5 underrated, because I've seen so many. Not because I've seen so many, but because my top 5 is very safe. Like there's a reason they're so well revered, but they're my top 5. But what I'll do, instead of doing underrated, I'll just share the rest of my list. Rest of the movies I've seen from him that I've given a 10 out of 10 to. So we have Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I said that was number 6. Number 7, You Can't Take It With You. Number 8, Anatomy of a Murder. Number 9, The Mortal Storm. Number 10, Shop Around the Corner. 11, Destry Rides Again. And then this one's not a full-length feature film, but I love Mr. Krueger's Christmas, so I include that too.
Oh, wow.
Classic.
Yeah. But those are all my 10 out of 10s, and then I go into the 9 out of 10 section, but I won't include that for this.
Nice. All right. You go ahead and mention yours, Nate. Ethan. Evan, sorry.
Evan, that's mine.
I'm combining everybody's names today.
You are. Okay, I'm going to throw one. He has a guest appearance, but it's so classic. It's After the Thin Man.
Oh, yes.
So if you haven't seen that, that's a joy to watch. The Thin Mans are great movies. I don't know why more people don't watch those.
After the Thin Man's number 14 on my ranking. I love that movie.
I can't think of its name. He plays a lawyer, Made for Each Other. It's one of the older ones. The transfer was hard to watch, but it was still a charming movie. James Stewart steals the show. You see why he's rising, because it's one of his early movies. That's a great one. And then one that I think that we didn't mention. I'm glad we didn't mention Flight of the Phoenix, because that's one movie I don't understand why people like it. I go, it's a fun movie. I watched it for the very first time last year, and that's one of those movies I'm going, I guess I'm going to have to watch it again to see if I like it the second time, but that's going to be a harder one. But Broken Arrow. Have you guys seen Broken Arrow?
Yeah.
So I really think that movie needs to be more important, because after James Stewart comes back from the war, he really wants to get rid of Redface. So he does not want to keep casting like Clark Cable Rock Hudson, because Rock Hudson in one of his movies plays a chief. So that's
so
how
ridiculous
that is. But he comes back and he's like, I want this America we talk about. He really comes back from the war and he fights for things he believes in, and he wants to get rid of Redface. And Broken Arrow is one of the very first movies where he gets as many natives as they can. There were actually some laws against it in the movie studio, so he does his best. It's not perfect, but he also shows them respectful and stuff like that. Now, the movie's not 100% great, but it is an important film that I think we need to do better. I think we as movie watchers need to go back, and even though there might not be great movies, we need to honor these movies that push boundaries and test the limits of the culture of the time. And so Broken Arrow's been one that's dear to my heart, but couldn't make the top 5 because the movie's not the best, but wanted to just shout those out for those.
Nice.
I'll quickly say, just note on the Flight of the Phoenix, when the Criterion Collection announced that one, I was so shocked. I was like, you had so many James Stewart movies to release, and you did Flight of the Phoenix? Like I remember when it came out, like when they announced that, I had already seen the movie, and I was like, I mean, like, it's a good movie, like, it's fine, it exists, but like, Mortal Storm could have been. That's where I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh, I'm gonna say it's the remake with Dennis Quaid. I enjoy much more than the original.
I haven't seen the remake. I know it exists, but I haven't seen it, so I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah.
Nice. I have a couple more Jimmy Stewart movies I can mention too.
Yeah, go for it.
I've only seen 10, so
that's okay.
So number 6 is Vertigo, just barely missed the list. And then Philadelphia Story.
Nice.
Love that movie. And Greatest Show on Earth, it was okay. I think James Stewart's the best part of the movie, but everything else was, it was okay.
That was the time where, like, how the West was won, where they were like going, does James Stewart need a paycheck, or does he have a contract to fill out?
Yeah,
or something?
Right.
He starts showing up in movies, but they're not like big roles or something. I don't know what he was doing, like, with those roles. Yeah,
it kind of felt more like a cameo, really.
Yeah.
The next, An American Tail, Philo Goes West.
Yeah.
I totally forgot he's in that movie.
He's that old stuff cycle.
Yeah.
So I grew up on those films. So
oh, nice.
And then last, of course, Mr. Kruger's Christmas.
Oh, there you go.
Watch that all the time for church.
Yeah, there you go. Fair enough.
That's one of the 7 I haven't watched.
It's so underrated.
Very obscure.
I don't know how you can find it. Is it even on YouTube, or I don't even know?
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
I only know because I had to use clips for my video essay.
Have you seen Bell Book in the Candle?
Yeah, I have.
Is that good? That's a hard one to find. It was on Criterion, but I said, "Oh, it's on Criterion," and then it literally went away the next day. So I discovered it like the last day.
Yeah, I can't even remember how I watched it. I watched it in 2021, so it was like a while ago. But yeah, I can't even remember what streaming. It might have been when it was on Criterion.
So yeah, I need Call North Side 77.
Yeah,
I need to see the FBI story. These are just kind of hard ones to find, and I'm not rich. I can't just go and buy them. And especially, I'm at a point where I want to buy movies that I'm going to like. So I'm trying to watch them and see it. Even though I probably at one time wanted James Stewart complete collection. I have 2 kids living in a very expensive state. So
yes, it is.
Yeah. So. Are you from California? Or are you actually flying out to California, Nathan?
We're driving. We're doing a whole trip. I'm in Arizona right now. But I lived in Torrance, California for a very short time. Very random. But we're doing a road trip because on the way to San Francisco, we're first stopping in LA, spending a few days there, and then driving to San Francisco and doing things on the way to San Francisco. So it's like a whole road trip where part of the trip is the actual road trip because we're stopping in places. Otherwise, we would have flown. But yeah.
Can I give you one recommendation in San Francisco?
Please, yeah.
In the Presidio is the Walt Disney Family Museum. and it's just a sweet. It's done by the family. So Diane, his daughter, did it, and it is. I think you would love it because they do such a good job with showing the history of Disney and
Cool.
like that. So I would
Okay.
highly recommend that.
Okay,
And
very cool.
And
I
if you end up
second that.
doing, yeah,
Okay,
if you
thank
end
you,
up
thank you.
doing that, let me know, and maybe I'll drive out the same day.
Okay.
And meet you there.
No,
So,
very cool. Is it something that like you can show up and get your tickets
Yep.
at the door? Oh, very cool. Okay.
You,
Good
to my knowledge, you could do that. During COVID, it was not.
Yeah.
But like I reserved because I'm a member, so
Sure.
I go in and just buy my ticket. But to my knowledge, people were just showing up and do. And the Pasudio is a really cool place to go because that was the old barracks where the military was during World War II and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a nice military cemetery behind it, and you see all. So it's actually, I think is in one of the barracks that they transform into. So it's a nice little like shopping area. Has some
Very
grass.
cool.
You see a beautiful picture of the bay in San Francisco. So I highly
cool.
recommend it just for that too. It's a beautiful
Okay.
place.
No,
to be.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And you like film, so who can't
Yeah.
go there?
I mean, movies are okay. They're fine.
Well, especially
It's
old
all right.
movies, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, before we wrap up, any final thoughts, guys, about James Stewart and his filmography?
watch it.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the
Exactly.
best. That's all I gotta say.
I hope that anyone who watches this and sees our passion will pick up a movie and watch it because old films are as important as new films, and so watch them.
100%. Yep.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And before we sign off, why don't you talk about your channel again and anything you got coming up?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
Well, you can find me at Pop Culture 33. You could do my letterbox. I think I just joined Instagram again, so I could get connected with people. But I have very strict rules. I only get 30 minutes a day. I'm not falling down that pigeonhole.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
And I'm hoping to launch my YouTube channel this coming week, the first week of July. So tune in. Just gonna talk about movies and stuff. But I wanted to say thank you because I don't normally get to talk this much about old movies, and especially James Stewart, and have this much in depth. Because usually everyone goes, "I've seen It's a Wonderful Life. I've seen the Hitchcock." So it's been nice to have a conversation that was wider than those movies. So. And it was nice meeting Nathan for the very first time.
Yeah. Good to meet you too, Evan. Likewise. Everything you said, I completely echo that. Loved discussing it with you guys. We gotta us fans of the old time movies, we've got to stick together. We have to build it up too. So these are the exact kind of live streams I love to be part of. But yeah, it's weird saying find me on Maple Street Movies because I'm still getting used to that name. But that's the channel. Letterboxd is I think if you just look up Nathan Hale Classics or at Cinema Nate, you'll find me or Nathan Hale. But I use Letterboxd. I hate to say it, but I use it pretty religiously. That's what I should set a time limit on Letterboxd. But love that app. And then on Instagram, it's Cinema Nate there as well. So that's where you can find me. But thank you again, Harrison, for having me.
Of course. And thank you both for coming on and being willing to do this kind of last minute almost. I had a blast. And we'll try something like this in the future, maybe a different actor or director. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you all so much for coming today. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. This is my guest, Evan, and my guest, Nathan. Take care, everyone. And broadcast.